Week 11 in the books, week 12 on deck, but before that, my weekly tier list. About a third of the league, it's done. It's over. The season in the garbage can. About a third of the league, still thinking they're contending for a Super Bowl, and the other third, just kind of hanging around. Let's break down who's who. All right, so as always, we're going to start with the 2025 mock draft season tier list. That is going to feature the New York Football Jets, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans, the Dallas Cowboys, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Giants. These teams are at the bottom of the league for a reason. You kind of know why. Let's play a one-sentence game with them. New York Jets, 40-year-old washed quarterback, post-Achilles, can't play no more. The Las Vegas Raiders never had a quarterback to begin with Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, but some good pieces for the future. The Cleveland Browns, a mess of a situation at quarterback, but actually probably a top-tier roster if they ever figured that out. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, injured, done for the year. Doug Peterson, probably fired after this season. Can they bring in a coach like a Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick? Already talked about that on the channel earlier today, who can turn that defense around. The Patriots, very bright future with Drake May, but don't have enough weapons at this point in time. Maybe they'll be in the playoff hunt next season. The Tennessee Titans, listen, it's a really good defense, but it's a really poor offense because of the quarterback play. Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott hurt, but even with him, a bottom half roster in the NFL. Shout out Jerry Jones. Carolina Panthers, maybe there's something in Bryce Young. I don't know. We're probably going to find out over the next month and a half. The New York Giants, good pieces. Bench Daniel Jones for Tommy DeVito. That's the quarterback situation. All right, now we move into the Frisky tier, and I want to start off with the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, first game back from the little bit of timeout benching that the Colts gave him, actually looked really freaking good, man. The rushing ability was there. He made some mistakes, had some fumbles, but I actually saw a real improvement. It felt like sitting on the sideline, getting a bit of a reality check, and maybe learning a little bit from Joe Flacco on the bench really helped him figure some things out. Shane Steichen is definitely a good head coach for the future. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Anthony Richardson. There's things to work with on this offense for sure. The defense could certainly use some improvement, but the Colts have become frisky in the AFC South. It's going to take a lot to catch up to Houston and a lot to get that 7th seed. But there is some potential there for Indianapolis. And I think the same thing could be said for Miami. It's going to take a lot for them to get up to the 7th seed. There's no shot they're catching Buffalo at this point. The Tua injury just set them back a mile. And to be honest, Buffalo is just a better team, even if Tua plays all year. But the way that Tua's been playing since he's come back has actually really impressed me. And you guys know me, I'm a Tua hater. But they're averaging like 28 points per game since he's returned from that concussion. The offense is humming. A-Chain, Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Jonnu fucking Smith out of nowhere has been an absolute gold for this team. The defense actually playing really well. You saw what they did to the Rams on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago. Like, the Dolphins got a bit of a squad here. I think that it's too late for them to catch up to, some of these other teams in the AFC trying to vie for the playoffs because the top of the top is just so loaded. But there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. Next, I got the Atlanta Falcons. Listen, they're going to win the NFC South, I think, but this is a one-and-done playoff team. I mean, Bo Nix just went up and down the fucking field on them. And this isn't Bo Nix slander, but the Broncos offense isn't exactly star-studded. If you're just going to get ran up and down the field by the Broncos offense and can't put up any points of your own, how do you expect to compete in the playoffs if you are Atlanta? They are a one-and-done playoff team. They kind of got where they wanted to be. 10 wins, win the NFC South, but I just don't see them making noise in the playoffs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I've said it for weeks now and I'll stand by it. If Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were healthy the whole season, this is the best team in the NFC South. Baker Mayfield, better quarterback than Kirk Cousins at this point in time. I'm willing to die on it. They got a real running attack with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White as that combination. The defense is really nice. Levante David is just fucking ageless at this point. The Bucs, if there were no injuries, probably win the NFC South. Speaking of the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints, man, they're back. They're back in the race for this. Rizzy got this team going pretty good. The special teams coordinator coming in, being the head coach for this squad. It's like, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's some little juice with this veteran team to make a push. Taysom Hill, if you guys didn't watch my weekly reaction, I played against him in fantasy, so fuck you, buddy. But I got the win anyways. Shout out the Texans defense. And the Chicago Bears, man, they moved up into Frisky. They did. What I saw from Caleb Williams versus the Packers, despite that loss, that was impressive. Now, granted, they're probably going to miss the playoffs with the way that the playoffs are shaken out. But I think that they are a frisky team, and I think that they could potentially upset some things for some teams down the stretch in the NFL. Fringe playoffs, give me the Denver Broncos, and I know Broncos fans, you're going to be mad at that. Your team likely, I think, gets into the playoffs, but we'll talk about the Bengals. Obviously, they're also going to be in this tier. I can't count them out yet, but Bo Nix, man, he is breathing down Jaden Daniels' neck for that offensive rookie of the year. The defense is top 5 in points per game and yards per game. Pat Surtain, the best defensive back in football. They can generate a real pass rush. They actually have a decent run game. Bo Nix and Sean Payton showing early success early on. If I'm a Broncos fan, I'm thrilled with this season. And I think if they get into the playoffs, man, in cold weather games, they could cause something to be low scoring. And who knows? They almost upset Kansas City just 2 weeks ago. If it wasn't for that blocked field goal, Kansas City's on a 2-game losing streak, and it starts with Denver. Of course, I do have the Cincinnati Bengals still as fringe playoffs, and I get it. This is kind of like maybe the Jets, where I just wasn't willing to give up on them, but they still got Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, perhaps the best offensive trio in football, playing really good football. Joe Burrow having MVP-type numbers. Obviously, the team isn't having that success, but he's still a top 5 quarterback in the league. The defense shows glimpses of being good from time to time, but listen, I just can't quit on the Bengals yet. I know. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. The 49ers, man, they are spiraling downhill. The whole NFC West is about to be in this tier, so I'm just going to put them all in here and kind of have a conversation about it as it stands. The Cardinals lead this division at 6-4, and then the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Rams are all 5-5. It's anybody's guess who wins this division. I think whoever gets in is probably one and done because they're playing Green Bay or Minnesota, truthfully. Obviously, if it's the Cardinals, they have the Kyler Murray factor where when he's on his A game, like he's a fringe top 5 guy, he's just not on it consistently enough. The Rams, great offensive trio, really quadruple. I don't know. 4 guys: Stafford, Kyron, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. The Seahawks, man, wrote them off, but they ain't right back. Like, this NFC West is going to play out to where one of these teams makes the playoffs. Whoever it is kind of a little dangerous to maybe win a game or two, but I don't see them fully going on a Super Bowl level run or even making a Super Bowl appearance. There's just too many weaknesses on each of these 4 rosters. Playoff teams, we're starting with the Houston Texans. That offensive line still worries me. Dallas was able to get a ton of pressures on CJ Stroud. I do think there is a potential peak that if I see this team reach that level of play, they could move up to the Super Bowl contenders tier. They have a top 10 quarterback. They have a top 10 head coach. They can generate an edge rush when Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and Danico Autry are all healthy. Haven't seen it this year. They have a top 3 corner in Derek Stingley. Jalen Petre's an absolute fucking freak. Like, Joe Mixon has been a great addition for this team. Just with some of the upper echelon AFC teams, I just wouldn't pick Houston against them in a playoff game today. Doesn't mean they can't reach there, but today I would not. The Minnesota Vikings, also a playoff team tier. Sam Darnold's looked kind of disappointing the past couple weeks, and maybe he's coming back down to reality. Teams are getting more tape on him. They're seeing some of those tricks of the Kevin O'Connell offense. I still love the team outside of Darnold, obviously. I like Darnold, but I love Jefferson. I love Addison. Hawkinson's great. The Cam Robinson, the supplement for Darisaw is okay. It's serviceable, but obviously that's a top tier tackle in the league. The defense leads the NFL in takeaways. So again, put your team on upset alert if they're playing this team, but I can't see the Vikings rattling off 4 straight wins in the playoffs. And lastly, the Washington Commanders. Listen, they're 0-4 this year against teams with a 500 or better record. They're going to be a playoff team. But unless they get matched up with like Atlanta round 1, or maybe it's a weird NFC West winner that they match up well with, I don't see them winning more than one playoff game this postseason. Now, granted, it's the Commanders. Nobody thought they'd be here. They have a great rookie quarterback, good pieces for the future. This season is a victory because they're going to win 10 games and they're going to make the playoffs. But I don't see them going on a Super Bowl level run. The Super Bowl contenders tier. Each of these teams kind of has one fatal flaw, but I think they could potentially pull off a run. Baltimore Ravens. That defense is kind of the flaw of this team. They can let up. And what is Lamar Jackson in the big games? Now, they're still one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. The Pittsburgh game, I'm not going to, just be like, oh, I saw one bad game out of the Ravens offense. They're cooked. Like, they're still a top 5 offense. Derrick Henry, potentially the offensive player of the year. Lamar Jackson, potentially MVP. Flowers, Deontay Johnson, Mark Andrews, likely. Bateman, Aguilar. Like, there's a ton of weapons on this offense, a decent offensive line, and they have some good defensive players across the board. Hamilton, Humphrey, Roquan Smith, Matabuke. They just can't put it all together with a full 11 set of personnel, but they do have superstars out there that, hey, maybe in a 3 or 4 game stretch in the playoffs can make plays. They looked pretty good this past weekend against Pittsburgh, who also is a Super Bowl contender, undefeated in the Russell Wilson era. And if that offense had looked more impressive, they could have bumped up into the Super Bowl favorites tier. I still think that they're pretty close to Baltimore. I think, you flip a coin 10 times for when they play. 5 times it's Baltimore, 5 times it's Pittsburgh. We just saw one of those games where it was Pittsburgh, 18-16. The Steelers are good though, man. That Pickens and Russell Wilson connection along with that run game is just good enough to have a serviceable enough offense for that defense. TJ Watt, fucking menace. The whole defense is excellent. The Chargers, man, speaking of excellent defenses, they are, I believe, still allowing the least amount of points per game in the NFL. Maybe not, though. Cincinnati put up a lot. I should have checked that stat before. But I know going into week 11, it was 12.6. So it's still probably one of the lower ones in the league. Justin Herbert looking like a top 5 quarterback talent now that he has a real head coach. Ladd McConkey, he's an excellent route runner, finding his way. Dobbins, a good run game. I wonder if they have enough offensive personnel to go on a run. But I'll tell you what, man, if I'm one of those, 2, 3, or 4 seeds, the last fucking team I want to see is the Chargers. Realistically, it is. And the Packers, man, Jordan Love has an interception in his first 8 games. He's the first quarterback to do that since Case Keenum. Like, this is my big gripe with this guy. He's missed 2 games this year and is tied for the league lead in interceptions. Now, he is tied with Mahomes, but he missed 2 games this year. He's just a guaranteed interception every single week. He's got that gunslinger mentality. It's cool. The Packers win a lot of games. The offense is solid. The defense is solid. But in a playoff run, knowing that the other team basically has a turnover in their back pocket does worry me for Green Bay. The Super Bowl favorites tier, Buffalo, man. They went out, they beat Kansas City like they normally do in the regular season, but Buffalo's roster feels better than Kansas City's this season. Obviously, Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback in football. I like James Cook, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakur, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, when healthy. Buffalo's got pieces, a decent offensive line, and good edge rush pressure. Rousseau, Von Miller's been really solid this year. The Bills defense, for Sean McDermott's credit, is good every year he's coaching. They're good this year. This could be the real year for the Buffalo Bills because the Kansas City Chiefs, who are still in the Super Bowl favorites tier, are weaker on offense this year than they were last year after the Rashee Rice injury. Rashee Rice is greater than signed DeAndre Hopkins in 2024. That's just the case of things, especially for this Kansas City offense, and Travis Kelce's dip in play makes them susceptible to be beat. Now, I'm never going to take the back-to-back champs with Mahomes and Reed and Spags out of the Super Bowl favorites tier, but I'm starting to feel like this might be the year that they get got. Detroit Lions, many people have this team as number 1 in their power rankings at this point in time. I don't do power rankings, but if I did, they wouldn't be number 1. I think I'd go Buffalo slightly over them. But Detroit, man, talk about a hyper-efficient offense. I mean, they fucking clobbered Jacksonville this past weekend, so it's not like they were moving down, but Goff, when he's protected, really good. Gibbs and Montgomery might be the best running back room in football. I mean, obviously you're competing with Henry and Saquon, etc., but they're really good. Amon-Ra St. Brown back in his groove. The defense, they force you in a lot of pass situations where those edge rushers, Zadarius Smith, can, get loose and get home. If they had kept Aiden Hutchinson, I think that this would feel like a team of destiny. Without him, against, I'll move them up. Philly with their great offensive line and their great two tackles in Mailata and Lane Johnson. It feels like we're destined for that kind of warpath NFC Championship, and it's going to be a battle. Home field advantage might make the difference. What I've seen from Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley this year, really, really excellent stuff. This feels like the top, my Super Bowl favorites tier feels like your conference championship weekend, and we'd be in for a fucking hell of a weekend. I don't know where I'd go at this point, but those four feel like the clear-cut best four teams to me in football. As always, if you made it this far in the video, hit the like button. Love the NFL. Hit the subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next time. Peace.